Hello, my name's Eamon Carey. I'm one of the directors of Urban, and this is a presentation I gave at the Social Media Forum in Abu Dhabi back in November. And it's one of a series of presentations that I'll be uploading to our YouTube channel and onto Facebook, just to go through some of the stuff that we talk about at conferences and to showcase some of the stuff that we do with our clients. So, contact details here for me on Twitter, email address. You can find us on the internet, read our blog there, and find out a whole bunch of other information off the back of that. So this presentation was all about getting social on mobile. So talking about how you could integrate mobile apps and social check-ins and social networks like Facebook and Twitter and various different other operators. So to get started, the kickoff point was really talking about things like single sign-on, which is like Facebook Connect, but for mobile applications on your iPhone or Android, or BlackBerry or elsewhere. So it allows you to sign into your Facebook account and use the information in your Facebook account on these applications, and then you can share your achievements or brag to your friends or different things using the application. So you can push the information out onto Facebook or Twitter or different places like that. So huge amount of examples of this. Facebook single sign-on being one of the biggest ones. Twitter, OAuth, OpenID, which is used by Google and Yahoo and a whole bunch of different people. Apple's own Game Center, OpenFaint, which is mainly a gaming network for mobile games. So a huge amount of different options that can be used on mobile applications. So let's just take a little bit of a step back to where kind of social networking started out. And if you look at when Bebo and Facebook and MySpace and those kind of platforms were initially popular, there was an element of the value of the squinting windows, like that kind of small town feel of, using it almost as a voyeuristic thing to see, well, who's doing what, and almost like a digital neighborhood watch, keeping an eye on what the neighbors are doing or what your friends are doing and where they are. And, there was quite an inclination towards privacy. Certainly if you look now at things like Quora or Foursquare or different applications like that, you'll find yourself getting an awful lot of invitations and friend requests from strangers, and Twitter being another example of that. I think where we've moved to certainly in the last 18 months, 2 years, is what I call kind of the brag and tag world. So using services like photo sharing, Foursquare, GoWalla, these location-based services, Facebook Places. In a sense, you're kind of tooting your own horn. So you're saying, well, look where I am, look what I'm doing, look how cool I am, look how brilliant everything I do is. So people tend to check into the coolest bar in town or the nicest restaurant in a particular city. They don't check into the supermarket queue, or they don't check into going to the post office or returning books at the library. Again, with photo sharing and Instagram and applications that are like that now, if you look at the types of photographs that people share, it's not necessarily dull and boring ones. It's always amazing views or cool products or funny looking animals. So it's all about boasts and brags and people being able to, toot their own horn a little bit and say, look at me and look what I'm doing and isn't that amazing, and make me look a little bit more interesting. And that obviously entails a lot less privacy. And there have been a number of kind of scare stories about things like Foursquare and Facebook Places and those check-in apps. Obviously, if you check into a location in London or Dubai or Dublin or wherever it might be, one thing that you're advertising is the location that you're not, which is obviously your house. And if there are tech-savvy burglars out there, maybe they can break into your house and steal all your stuff. Those are genuine issues, and I do think that they need to be considered. But I do think that the world we're in now, this kind of brag and tag world, is one that has far less privacy involved. So we're talking a little bit about the kind of game layer, which is one way of getting social on mobile. And the gold bar competition is something that I use all the time when I talk about gaming and rewards and incentives. So the gold bar competition was run on radio in Ireland for years on a show called the Gay Byrne Show. And basically it involved a gold bar, as you might imagine, being hidden somewhere in the country. And a number of clues then were given out in the radio show every day, cryptic clues that would tell people where to go within the country. to find directions to the next clue. So eventually, obviously, you would find the gold bar. One person would find the gold bar, which at today's rates is worth nearly $15,000. And what happened was people started taking the week or 2 weeks off work around the gold bar. They would collaborate with their friends. They would get information, pool information, try and work out the clues, which were really cryptic and difficult to figure out as a group, and obviously share the spoils. And it was massively popular. And again, you'll see that in tons and tons of radio and TV promotions now, that kind of treasure hunt mechanic hasn't gone anywhere. Again, in terms of other offline game layers, table quizzes, pub quizzes, whatever you want to call them, are hugely popular, undertaken by millions of people worldwide every week. Tag rugby is one example of mass adoption of a real world physical game where you go out and run around. Hugely popular in Ireland, and gaining popularity elsewhere because it's a sport that men and women can play. It's non-contact, obviously gets you outdoors and running around, which is healthy in today's world of obesity and drinks with 17 spoonfuls of sugar in them. And you know, the offline game layer obviously has mass adoption. So there's a social game layer on mobile, which is roughly the same thing, except instead of being in the real world, a lot of it is stored on your mobile phone, but it fundamentally functions in the same way. So you can compete with people, you can collaborate with people. There are hundreds and hundreds of different game mechanics. And most importantly, in terms of it being a mobile device, whether it's a BlackBerry or an iPhone or Android or Nokia Windows 7, you can switch it on, you can use it anytime, any place, anywhere. So you can log into one of these games or one of these apps while you're sitting waiting to meet someone for coffee. You can log into them while you're waiting for a plane in the airport, or when you've got 5 minutes to spare in work or on your lunch break. So you can engage with these games anywhere, and that's hugely important for brands and agencies and people who want to get involved in this whole kind of area. So what I want to do is take a look at some really good examples, and talk a little bit about them, and hopefully it will kind of stimulate some ideas. Scavenger is a company that was only set up in the last 2 years, now backed by Google Ventures, and basically they have a mobile app that allows you to do treasure hunts and scavenger hunts, and a whole bunch of other kind of tasks within that. They've more than 500,000 users. They've recently opened their platform up to at a global level. Previously it was only available to companies and people in the US, but now available to far more people. But the idea is that if a brand or a shop or a company wants to promote themselves, or a tourist board, they can set up these scavenger hunts and these treasure hunts that allow you to go to various different locations. So you can check into locations. So you said, I am here. You maybe have to take a photograph there, or you maybe have to input a password that's stored in that location. So it forces you to get out and about and maybe explore a little bit of the world around you. So it's similar, obviously, to that treasure hunt mechanic that I spoke about a little bit earlier on. So hugely popular. Sticky Bits, again, funded by a lot of very, very clever people. It's more around objects rather than places. So Sticky Bits allows you to scan barcodes. So it might be a soft drink can or a book, and then you can look at, well, what are people saying about that product? So you can read reviews, you can add your own comments to it. Obviously particularly useful in terms of books and things like that. You can collaborate with people. So if you get if it's a soft drink promotion being run by Pepsi, and you get 10 of your friends into a particular location and you all scan the Pepsi barcode at the same time, that makes you eligible for a prize. And obviously, as this says, you can earn rewards based on your participation. So both Scavenger, obviously, and Sticky Bits are working with brands at the moment to develop rewards and incentives for people engaging with their applications. And again, Foursquare, other people like that are doing the same. This is an interesting one, given that it's already sponsored by a brand, Puma, and their live scoreboard. Allows you to compete against your friends on almost anything. So the examples that are used here is, in this image, it's Brett and Alex competing to see who's going to go to the gym most often over a 4-week period. You can compete with people, as I say, and almost say who's going to eat the most eggs in a month, who is going to read the most books in a year. And you obviously log in every time you go to the gym and you say, I did this. your score increases. You can see how you're doing against your friend or friends. And then the important thing here is that you can brag about it. So if you're competing with someone to see who can read the most books in a 6 month period, and you've read 15 and they've read 5 after 3 months or 4 months, you can post that out onto Facebook and onto Twitter and say, well, look how I'm doing. The hope being, obviously, that you can embarrass your friend into either doing better or just simply embarrass them. So, as I say, it syncs with other networks, and it's quite an interesting idea because it obviously shows a big, major global brand looking at these game mechanics and thinking, actually, there's an opportunity to engage with our customers by using these. Farmville will be familiar to a lot of people who use Facebook on an ongoing basis. Again, Cityville is another example of this, which recently got to, I think, 100 million users in 43 days. So Farmville is basically an appointment-based game. So you've got to go back to the application at certain times to complete certain tasks. So whether it's harvesting crops at a certain time, and you can collaborate with your friends then to get a bigger farm or to get better prizes and so on. So hugely popular game. That appointment-based mechanic is incredibly popular. And obviously Zynga have made a huge amount of money out of it. And it'll be interesting to see now. I know of at least 2 or 3 big brands who are going to be coming out with their own clones effectively of this kind of game over the next while. So whether or not they prove to be popular or they have the same mechanic remains to be seen. Farmville is a game that's in development by a friend of mine. I include it just because there's some very good ideas in terms of flipping the mechanic on its head a little bit. Again, Farmville will allow you to collaborate with some of your friends, but it will also allow you to cause mischief and mess with people. So you can burn down their barn or salt the earth or different things. And it'll allow you to use progress bars to gauge how you're doing. And progress bars, again, are a very powerful motivator for people. So people who use LinkedIn will be familiar with the progress bar that goes up based on how much of your profile you've completed or how many recommendations you have and so on. And that's a little game mechanic built into a social network that's ostensibly very serious and slightly po-faced place. Communal discovery is another big one. Stumble Upon, Dig, there's a whole number of these out there. Allows you to effectively curate content for your friends. Again, likes, Facebook likes, retweets, all of those different options are the same. So it's effectively a way of increasing your social ranking. People might be familiar with Klout, KLOUT.com, which is a kind of a social ranking service. You put in your Twitter username and it shows whether you're an influencer or who you're influenced by and so on. And again, it's a little bit about progress and influencing your friends. So if you're seen as a gatekeeper to interesting and or funny information, obviously it helps increase your popularity. So communal discovery is an interesting one, particularly this year where people are talking a lot about content and content curation, and they're 2 big kind of hot button topics for investors in the tech community as a whole at the moment. So why do this? Well, if you look at why people engage with Facebook pages or why they become a fan of a brand on Facebook, a large part of it is because they want there to be something in it for them. So an incentive or a reward of some description. So they're not necessarily doing it because they have a warm, fuzzy feeling in their tummy, about your brand or your company. They're doing it in the expectation that there might actually be something in this for them. Whether that something is a simple coupon, or whether it's a big sweepstakes competition to win a trip to the World Cup, they're entering and they're liking because they're expecting something in return. So incentives and rewards are massively important to think about. So when you're thinking about social games or social apps, and whether those are social apps purely on Facebook or social apps on mobile platforms, it's important to think about what are people going to get out of it. It's no good just having an app for the sake of having an app. If it's a branded application, people are going to expect there to be some end result for them, or at least the potential of some sort of end result for them. It's obviously different if you're Farmville or Cityville, but even still, there are incentives and rewards in place in those applications. Badges, again, if you're familiar with Foursquare, you'll be familiar with the whole concept of using badges and earning badges based on the number of different places that you check into, or if you stay out after a certain time. Midweek, you get the school night badge. If you're on a boat, you can check in on a boat. You get the I'm on a boat badge. So again, they're physical proof of your position within a social network or within a group of friends. And all of this is about driving deeper engagement. And engagement, unfortunately, has become a bit of a buzzword, but it's still a valuable term. You need to, as a brand, I think people are expecting brands to engage with people, and as agencies now, their brands are expecting you to be able to advise them on how to do this. And also, it is a social activity. If you have people using the Puma Life scoreboard to compete with one another, obviously it's a hugely social activity. If you've got groups of friends going out and doing a scavenger hunt, again, it's a massively social activity. And all of those things do drive that engagement and that little bit of warm, fuzzy feeling towards a brand. So there's a couple of things just to think about before I finish up here. Social and mobile apps are obviously hot button topics at the moment, and are hugely important and are not hugely difficult to implement. A lot of the services that I talked about earlier on and that I've mentioned over the course of this little video, are ones that are freely available and that lots of people have. So you don't need to go out and build your own application. You can integrate your offering with Scavenger or with Foursquare or with Sticky Bits, and you can talk to ourselves at Urban or your agency or whoever you want about the best way to do that. So you don't need to spend $50,000 building a massive application that copies exactly what Foursquare does, because why not you work through them. Do think about simple games and mechanics. Again, one of the things that we've found with a lot of people coming to us is that they want to do something that's effectively reinventing the wheel. They want to develop an application or a competition that's almost a startup in itself. And there's a huge cost that goes along with that, and their ideas are needlessly complicated. Whereas the reality is that simple things like quizzes and sweepstakes and coupons, and they're easy to use, easy to implement, and people understand them. And that's the most important thing. If you develop an application and someone launches it or someone logs into it on a Facebook page and they can't understand it within the first 15 or 30 seconds, then you're lost, because people will just switch off and say, I'm sorry, I'm not interested. And again, that comes back to baby steps. So you need to be able to do things in a linear way that makes sense, particularly if you're a brand or you're a client and you want to keep those budgets at a reasonable level. There's no point in reinventing the wheel and doing something huge to start with, when you can maybe start with a simple Facebook campaign, build a bit of an audience and user base based on that, and then start pushing out slightly more complicated or more ambitious projects, and then you'll obviously have a baked in user base to start from as well. Use Unobtainium. Unobtainium is a word that's been around for a long time. They used it as the name for the mineral that they had to mine for on Pandora in the movie Avatar. And unobtainium is basically, as the name suggests, something that's unobtainable normally or very difficult to obtain. And it comes back to the idea of incentives and rewards. If you're doing a big promotion, one of the best ways to get publicity and PR around it is obviously to use unobtainium, to use a reward or a prize that is something that most normal people will never be able to get. So you see it all the time with people getting the opportunity to train with Manchester United, or to fly themselves and 4 of their friends first class to a hotel in the Bahamas, or an opportunity to go to VIP pit lane at the Formula One on Yas Island. Use those prizes if you have them, because that will drive engagement. And if you can make those prizes dependent on people being social and pushing your message out there, that obviously helps you create a viral effect. So all of those things worth thinking about. Other things to think about, our website, my Twitter handle. If you do have ideas, or if you would like to find out more about how you can implement these mobile and social apps, do get in touch. We're very open and always happy to talk to people. And I hope to hear from some of you very soon. And if you've got any questions, you can feed them through to me on Twitter, or you can leave them in the comments of this video. So thanks very much for watching, and hopefully I'll talk to some of you soon.